It sounds awful, and it is awful. When we talk about this case, I mean no disrespect. This is purely, facts and research that I have found online that is already out there. And I don't mean any disrespect or anything to any of the loved ones or family and friends that are involved in this woman's life. I just like to make that point known. And also I just want to also mention that I do have a Patreon where you can join for like £4 or £5 a month, and you get my content early on, so you can watch them before everyone else watches them. You can also get my social medias and other benefits from being a member. Also, you can be a member on YouTube as well, which is similar, so it just depends which one you prefer, YouTube Premium or membership or Patreon membership. So yeah, more exclusive perks then that is available, and I always leave the links in the description and in my video. So anyway, let's get on into the case. Born in 1954, Rosario Andral. If I pronounce any of these names wrong, I don't mean it, disrespectfully. I literally just am the worst at pronunciations. I like to go by the name of Chario or Sharo had grown up in a poverty-stricken household in the northwestern city of Leon, Spain. By the late 1950s, the family had moved to Barcelona. As she grew up, Sharo's intelligence, beauty and endearing personality had enabled her to make a decent life for herself. After finishing Catholic school, she had completed secretarial courses and started her working life at a bank's local branch office. Later, in the late 1970s, and thanks to her fluency in other languages, she began working as a secretary for the high executive office at the then booming Spanish superstore franchise by Briga. 1981, Sharo married her husband Luis Rodriguez, and soon after they welcomed their daughter Santal. The young family moved into a spacious apartment in the Rambla de Brazil, not far from her parents' residence. It seemed that Sharo's life went smoothly during the 1980s and the first half of the 1990s. She and her husband could even afford to buy a boat, a sailboat they named Kiwi. It was in 1995 when her life began to fall apart. Sharo began an affair with one of the executives at her workplace, a French man named Jan. Later that year, Sharo accompanied him into a business trip to his native France, where she would be offered an even higher paying secretary job in Paris. Sharo, now in love with Jan, accepted and abandoned Louis and Santal, who was just 14 years old at the time, for a new life in France. Louis divorced her not long after this and was granted full custody of Santal. Life with Jan was doomed, and from here Sharo's life began plummeting on a downwards spiral. Jan introduced Sharo to cocaine, and soon enough she had become addicted to it. person when another homeless individual robbed her of it. Sharo's life continued going downhill from here. Her alcoholism worsened, and with it, so did her health. She'd end up losing most of her teeth in the following 5 years because of her poor health and hygiene issues. Her mental health deteriorated as well, as she was committed for a while at a psych ward in St. Boy. Over the course of these years, her body accumulated scars from beatings she'd sustained from other homeless people or from people who were ideologically against the homeless. Although there was a lot of animosity towards Sharo from her family, it pained them to see her struggle. With the help of a social worker, Sandal and Shara's mother managed to get the government to grant her a small pension. Unfortunately, Shara would spend most of that money on alcohol. The night of Thursday, the 15th of December 2005, was like any other day for the now 51-year-old Sharo. She'd gone to sleep inside of the ATM vestibule using a bunch of cardboards as a mattress and keeping herself warm with small blankets. The ATM CCTV footage recorded the sequence of events that would play out that night. At 10:10 p.m, Sharo Andral was captured on the footage, walking into the vestibule to spend the night in it, placing her improvised cardboard mattress on a corner right of the vestibule's glass door and lying on it. In doing so, Sharo stayed out of the CCTV's field of view. At 1:38 a.m, an 18-year-old man named Richard Penilla walked into the ATM vestibule accompanied by another young man, later identified as 18-year-old box made of hard cardboard that they'd collected from a nearby construction works. The CCTV recorded the two of them taking turns to beat Charo up with them, all the while laughing and smiling while attacking the homeless woman. At 4:47 a.m, Ricard and Joanne walked out of the vestibule briefly, whilst Aurora stayed in front of it, seemingly waiting. Approximately 8 minutes later, both teens returned carrying a 25-litre plastic container of what would later be confirmed as paint thinner 039, a mixture of methyl acetate, toluene, methanol, styrene, heptane and naphtha. I will leave these words up here because obviously they're like what was used in these containers. So yeah, they can be like difficult to, say as well and stuff. So all but two of these components alone are highly flammable. Aurora held the door open for them. Joanne began to spill the contents on the vestibule's floor whilst Aurora stood outside smoking a cigarette. Not much can be seen off camera, however. At 4:57 a.m, Joanne was seen exiting the vestibule rather hurriedly while glancing back. A sudden outburst of flames took over the CCTV's field of vision. Ricard also ran away from the flames out of the vestibule. Through the door Aurora was still holding open for him, the trio of friends took off running. They had set Charo on fire alive. The CCTV was able to withstand the 400 degrees Celsius heat, so 750 Fahrenheit, for just 13 seconds before it stopped working, but captured a frame of Aurora laughing while looking at the fire just before he turned around to flee the scene with his friends. A resident living in the same building, the ATM was dialed for emergency services, and firefighters soon arrived to the scene. Realizing that there was a person in the flames, the firefighters requested help from police and an ambulance. When Charo was recovered, an ambulance stabilized the badly burned Charo, who was barely clinging to life, before rushing her to the Val d'Hebron University Hospital. Charo arrived to the hospital by 5:49 a.m, but with 68% of her body covered in third and even fourth degree burns. The doctors at Val d'Hebron couldn't get Charo's vital signs stable enough to proceed with treatment. Charo would pass away at around 9:40 a.m. on Saturday the 17th of December 2005, approximately 28 hours after being hospitalized, admitted to the hospital in critical condition. Cause of her death was listed as hypovolemic shock and multiple organ failure resulting from the extensive burns she had sustained. Both firefighters and police noticed from the very start that the fire had been purely intentional. Given the lack of witnesses, the CCTV footage was the main lead to follow. The footage was released to the public, and this sparked nationwide outrage. It would not take long before the sadistic culprits were identified. The Catalonian police force Mossos de Esquadra, who were in charge of the investigation, focused their attention on one of the three culprits, the young man with the long hair wearing a Cameras visited nearby restaurants, stores, pubs, etc., and showed people cropped pictures of the suspect's face, removing the content to protect the investigation. It only took the officers 2 days to identify the long-haired young man as Ricard Penilla Barnes. They soon discovered that Ricard and Joanne were due to attend a party on the night of the 18th of December at a flat of a friend. At 11:45 p.m, the Mossos de Esquadra showed up at the flat and arrested both teenagers. A role planner, Simo, was arrested at 6:45 p.m. the following day at Barcelona Saints train station, when he had just returned from spending this weekend in Zaragoza, where his father lived. Arol had been studying and working during the weekdays in Zaragoza, but thanks to the help of an acquaintance with the investigators, he was made believe that he needed to return to Barcelona as soon as possible. Also, I do apologise if there is background noise. It's just like birds tweeting, which is like kind of relaxing anyway. Well, I think it is anyway, the sound of birds. And then obviously I've got people downstairs talking, but I can't really do anything about that, so I do apologise. But yeah, I've turned the gain down like a lot, so yeah. In the first weeks after the crime, the press erroneously attributed the 3 young men to upper middle class households. However, only Ricard Penilla belonged to that demographic. His father was an industrial engineering teacher at university. His mother was a pharmacist. Joanne Jose Mera came from a single parent household. His mother, a manual labourer, had been unemployed for months, and his father had abandoned the household years earlier. As for a role planner, despite the stylish clothing he's seen wearing in the CCTV footage, he came from a working class household too. A role was described by his friends as Paijo, preppy, and liked to pretend belonging to a high social class than he really was. None of the 3 had prior criminal records. Pending trial for the murder of Rosario Andral, Joanne Jose, being a minor, was housed at a juvenile facility. But the 18-year-old Ricard and Arol would be sent to the Trinitat Vella Penitentiary Centre. Just 2 days into their admission, Ricard was beaten up by about a dozen inmates, one of which also choked him into unconsciousness. He had to be saved from further damage to his safety by the prison guards and a few less violent inmates that intervened. In another attack, Arol was punched in the face by another inmate so hard that he sustained mouth injuries. One of them was also grabbed by a group of inmates and had his head shaved. The trials were held in the fall of 2008. Joanne Jose Mera had a separate trial, given that he was a minor when he participated in Chara's murder. It surfaced that 3 friends knew each other from frequenting the same internet cafe to play video games. They were all bad students. Ricard had been held 2 years already. It also surfaced that it wasn't the first time the trio attacked a homeless person. Their phones contained several videos in which they'd seen hurting and degrading other homeless people. In one of them, Ricard smacked a homeless man in the face and forced him to say, "This is jackass." In another, Ricard and Arol poured the contents of a trash can on another homeless man, laughing at him as they did it. It was precisely a classmate of Ricard who informed that Mossos de Esquadra about these videos after Ricard had bragged about them at high school. The classmate had explained that Ricard and his friends hated the homeless and minorities and hanged out with the neo there partying around the neighborhood and bumped into Joanne Jose. The three friends would drink shots of spirit. Absinthe was mentioned before coming back to the ATM past 4 a.m. During the trial, Arol and Ricard accused Joanne Jose of causing the fire, probably because he was a minor then, therefore less liable, which Joanne Jose vehemently denied. Joanne Jose also claimed he never meant to pour the thinner over Charo and that he only wanted to pour it nearby to give her a scare, but he accidentally dropped the container. Ricard and Joanne Jose claimed through their defence that they didn't understand how flammable the liquid in the blue container, which he took from the same construction works Arol had taken the traffic cone earlier, was until the fire happened. This was also shot down by the prosecution. All commercially available universal thinner containers included a large label, hazardous properties. The prosecution argued that Arol was holding the door open prior to the deflagration, so his friends could exit the inferno in time. Setting Charo ablaze had not only been an accident, it was also fully premeditated. What is more, firefighting experts managed to prove most of the thinner had been poured right on the corner where Charo was at when she was set ablaze, debunking the accident scenario brought up by the defence. On the 5th of November 2008, with all defendants found guilty of premeditated murder, the court sentenced Ricard Bonilla and Arol Planner to 17 years in prison each, 16 for murder, 1 for fire damage to property. They were also sentenced to pay for the aforementioned $26,717 worth of damages to the ATM vestibule, as well as $46,000 other compensation, plus additional interest to Charo's mother and to her daughter Santel Rodriguez Andral. A week before, Joanne Jose Mera, a minor at the time of the murder, received an 8-year sentence and a 5-year surveillance after release. The murder of Rosario Andral caused nationwide indignation. In Spain, it sparked protests and campaigns for awareness on hatred and negative attitudes towards the homeless. Charo's body remained on the morgue for 7 months before it was finally given burial. The press mistakenly reported this as her body being unclaimed. In reality, the investigation judge had granted the prosecution's request to keep her body in there for that long, so the team of coroners could accurately assess the total extent of the injuries her attackers had inflicted on her. During the trial, Santel Rodriguez expressed through a letter that Arol, Ricard and Joanne Jose not only took Charo's life away, but also the possibility of reconciliation between Charo and Santel. Perhaps on a day like today, my mother could have decided to accept help and become again the woman she'd once been, she said in the letter. As of December 2023, all 3 culprits are free. In 2016, Ricard Bonilla was granted a semi-open regime, meaning he could leave prison premises for certain amounts of time under a series of conditions before being paroled in 2021. He was granted interviews to several media outlets ever since. Ricard claims to feel profound remorse for his crime and claims accepting the hatred he is the target of. But he has also tried to explain his actions by the insecurities and low self-esteem he said he was plagued with at the time. He attributed his far-right involvement to these things. According to him, to this day, Joanne Jose's family still accuses him of ruining Joanne Jose's life, and he says he hasn't seen or spoken with Arol A shelter for the homeless in the Rosario neighborhood announced that it would create a care space for women in vulnerable situations that would be named after Rosario Andral home. The Rosario Andral home is aimed at single adult women who have been homeless for a long time. The Rosario Andral home has 10 fully equipped individual rooms with their own kitchen. The building is communal areas, collective management, and social and educational support. The women who can stay there indefinitely will be able to live there with their pets. And that's the end of today's true crime case. What an absolutely horrible, disgusting, horrific case that was to read and get through. It is absolutely disgusting. I don't care what age you are, whether you're a kid or you're a teenager or a fucking full-grown adult, like that type of behaviour is absolutely disgusting. And I'm sorry, but these kids literally came back like more than once to her. They literally grabbed fucking weapons and that container with all that flammable ingredients in, knowing it was flammable. I'm sorry, how can you not know it's flammable when it has a massive sign on it saying flammable? It's got the warning sign on it. Like, to me it just seems a bit of a cop out, because at the end of the day they knew what they were doing and it's absolutely disgusting. I just feel so upset